Okay, that was a joke. XAVCS, that's hard. It's not that bad. I actually used this codec for the past 2 years since I owned the Sony A7S3. But why do I think that now it is time to switch to All-I or XAVCS-I? Why do I think it's time to switch? As you probably know by now, I rented a Sony FX6 not long ago, and I realized how much of a difference this camera can make to my workflow and to the quality of the image that I want out of the camera. And I was a bit frustrated when I went back to my Sony A7S3 because I was like, I could see the difference. I could see that I can't really get that level that I got on the FX6. Obviously that's a cinema camera. This is not so much a cinema camera, but there is one way that you can step up your quality, kinda. See, probably just like you, when I got this camera a couple of years ago, I started watching all of the main YouTubers making videos about this camera, what codec you should use, what codec you shouldn't use. And it was kind of no-brainer for me because everybody pretty much said, use XAVCS because it's smaller file sizes and the quality is pretty much the same. So I just thought about it and I was like, well, that's it. That's the decision, it was made. And it even crossed my mind once that I should maybe think about it and try different codecs. I just didn't see the difference because for me, coming from an A7 III, the quality of the footage out of this camera was. But then 2 weeks ago, after this discovery that I actually noticed through Catalyst Browse that the FX6 was shooting at a higher megabit per second, and then I actually found out that it was just the codec. I was like, what if I shoot at a higher megabit per second, higher codec, better codec on my Sony? Will that make a difference? So I did my deep dive into the web, geeked out as much as I could, and well, it turns out that there is actually a few differences, and that's why we're here today to talk about this. This is my point of view of why XAVCS-I, it's so hard to pronounce, why this codec, it's better than the other codec. Let's start from the basics. XAVCS records an inter-frame GOP compression rate, which means that pretty much every frame, as soon as you press record, takes the first frame and then compresses the next few frames, and take one frame and then compresses the next one. So this allows for a very fast recording. You don't need a super fast SD card, only a V60, which is not that fast to be honest. And you can have small file sizes, but still keeping that beautiful image out of pretty much any camera this codec is in. On the other hand, when you record with the XAVCS-I, it's an intra-frame compression, which means that every single frame it's recorded and compressed one by one instead of together, which means you need a higher speed SD card or CF Express card, which means it's going to cost you more, but the quality is higher, and because it compresses frame by frame by frame, it's a larger file. Simple as that. And being a larger file, being compressed frame by frame by frame, I feel like you have that little bit of quality and a little bit of extra in post-production. Okay, I know that was confusing, but I hope it kind of came across well. Now that we know these things, you have to think and try to understand yourself. Do you want to spend an extra $200-300 in hard drives every year because the file sizes of this new codec, it's much bigger? Or do you want to save that? Do you want to pay for an SD card that is like $50-60? Or do you want to pay for an SD or a CF Express card which is like $200? And then you have to buy an adapter. So it's all of the things that you have to consider, but you also have to consider that shooting on this codec, All-I codec, actually makes your post-production workflow a lot faster. Yes, you heard it right. These bigger files are actually much easier to edit. And it didn't make sense until I read this article from Sony that was explaining that because it's compressed frame by frame, doing this intra-frame compression, pretty much what happens is that there's less load on the GPU because the computer has less load, which makes for faster editing rather than the other codecs because they're more compressed. Turns out that. So definitely if you're working on an older laptop, maybe you should also consider that because maybe this will make your workflow a lot better and faster. All right, we're almost there, guys. Hang on one more minute. So after all of this things taken in consideration, I came to my conclusion, which I will be shooting 98% of the times on XAVCS S-I because it just makes sense. I don't care about spending a little bit more money each year. I don't care about the file sizes. If it helps me in quality and if it helps me in the workflow in post-production, then why not? And to be honest, I probably should shoot these YouTube videos not on this codec just because of the useless file size and no one will see the result anyway compressed on YouTube. But I still think that I like to edit this way. I will make my YouTube editing workflow faster, so why not? There is probably that 2-3% of the time that I won't be using this, and that's maybe if I'm shooting a longer interview, then I will probably opt for XAVCS just because it doesn't make sense to record that much of a big file if the interview is like longer than 10 to 15 minutes. As always guys, do not take any of these videos into consideration. If you don't want to, do your own research, do your own tests. This is just my opinion. Thank you again another week for sticking around, and I'll see you guys in the next video next week. See ya.